think we're good to go.
All right, thanks. I was sitting in one of our we have a lot of Fortune 500 customers. I was sitting in one of their meetings and I was an observer. And I was listening to a project management team go back and forth about the fork in the road that they were at where a decision had to be made. And Maggie spoke up. And Maggie shared a story from 9 months earlier where she was working on a similar project and they came to a fork in the road and they had to decide, do we go over budget or do we delay the project? In other words, where do you want to go? It has to be this choice or this choice. And what they decided was to stay under budget and to allow the project to go past its deadline. She shared with the entire team in that meeting how that was the wrong choice. And she explained why. And then she said, we're facing a very similar situation here today. We're at a fork in the road. And based on my past experience on a very similar project, I don't think we need to make that decision again. We should go over budget because it's going to save us a world of heartache in the future. My name's Russ. If you've got any questions, I hope that you will jump in and ask questions in the chat panel. Zach has already promised me he's going to watch that chat panel and he's going to make sure he asks those questions to me. I also invite you to not only ask questions of me, but you can also answer questions for each other. So use that chat panel. This is meant to be more of a dialogue, but I've got a lot of information to give you today, lots of tools that I plan on sharing. I want to welcome all of you and let you know that my experience is now over about 3 decades. And I am a communication student for life. I became fascinated with communication and I began studying it, and I'm an observer. And what I look for are those things that are repeatable. I try to find successes so that I can repeat those and teach others how to do it, but I pay special close attention to the failures. You've probably heard this before, that experience is a great instructor. I'm here to tell you that that's a lie. You've been lied to. It is not a great teacher. Experience is a good teacher, but what makes it a great teacher is when you pause to reflect on the experience. So here's my encouragement for each of you today. I'm going to give you a lot of tools, and I want you to tell yourself right now that you're going to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to try something. You're going to try something different after today. Short time that we're together, I promise I'm going to give you lots of tools. I want you to make a promise to yourself that you'll do something different because nothing's going to improve until something changes. So let's find something to change. You decide what that needs to be. Now, we promised that in this webinar, we are going to talk about 3 business challenges that you need to overcome to implement any type of a change. I'm going to give you a lot of tools. If you thought I was going to give you 3 story templates, you're going to get a lot more than that. We're going to give you 4, and I'm going to give you a tool that will give you 6 more. So please be prepared for that. If you've got one of these devices, and I'm assuming that you do, I recommend you get it ready, and here's why. I am going to give you a QR code at one point, but I'm also going to encourage you to take pictures of your screen, or if you know how to do it on your screen with a little screen grab, do some screen grabs. I'm going to give you lots of models, lots of tools. You're going to want these pictures. So what are the 3 challenges that we need to overcome? This is not an arbitrary list, and we're not going to add to this list or take away from it. This is the complete list. In other words, the 3 you're looking at are extremely important, so don't overlook these too quickly. We're going to dive into each one. The 3 areas or challenges that you need to overcome. Number 1 is, before there will be any change within your organization, is there a need? And what is that need? And how is that need defined? What brought us to this point? It's all about the need. We're going to dive into that. The second piece is, how do we proceed from here? Where do we go from here? What's the path? And the third, do we have what it takes to get there? What's it going to cost? Time, money, resources, people, skill sets? What do we need in order to make that happen? These are the 3 challenges that you need to overcome. Now we're going to put them into a format so you can see a model here. I don't know about you, but I think in pictures. And so I need to have a model as to how this all fits together. I'm going to give you that today, how all of these pieces fit together. This is our path. We're going to first talk about those, the 3 elements that make up the need. And this lines up with storytelling. 3 pieces that make up that need. Next, 4 story templates that can help you better define how you proceed from here. And then finally, when should you ask? And what I mean by ask is, if you're the leader, when do I ask my team to get started? If I'm speaking to senior leaders, when should I ask them for approval or whatever it is I need from that group? And then I'm going to give you another free storytelling tool at the end. I think we all know this. You've heard this before, that stories are hardwired into humans, right? I'm sure you've heard that. That might be why you're here as well. Stories are hardwired into each and every one of us. When people present in business, they tend to give a lot of facts and data, especially in today's day and age. There's a workshop that we teach called Presenting Data Analytics, and it's extremely popular. It's because so many people use data to get their point across. And data is good, that's great. But we always try to fit it into a story. And I'll prove my point right now. We just started this webinar. And if I'm reading your mind, you're thinking, I wonder if I'm going to get anything useful today. I wonder if this is going to be very high level fuzzy, or if I'm actually going to be able to use some of this. I wonder how I could use this with my team. I wonder, could it be beneficial for what we're about to take on with this project? Could I have used this last month? In other words, you're trying to take what we're giving you here today, and you're trying to fit it into your story, aren't you? I'd be doing the same thing. Every audience is going to do this. Your audience is going to do this. And when I say your audience, I'm talking about you speaking to your team, speaking to a group of peers, or you speaking to your senior leadership. Your audience will always take the information that you give them and try to fit it into their story. That's how we think. So it's good for us in business to understand how humans think when it comes to stories. So we'll take you into part one. Here's the first thing that I need everyone to understand about storytelling. It's defining the need, all right? The need. We gave you those three, the need, and how do we get there, and how much is it going to cost. We're diving into the first one now, the need. The need breaks down into three key pieces, and these three key pieces actually make up storytelling. Every story that you've ever heard, every movie that you've ever been to, every season of whatever that you binged on Netflix, there are always these three pieces. The first piece is, who's the hero? There's always a hero of the story. Now, in some of these complex movies, there's multiple heroes, or you're trying to figure out who your hero is, and different people are attracted to different heroes. Marvel does a great job of the hero movies where we are attracted to all these different heroes, and one might relate to you and someone else might relate to someone else, but you have a hero of the story. Even in business, when you're speaking, who's the hero of the story? And I'll give you an business engineering example in just a moment. So who's the hero? That's the first piece. In every story, in every movie, they always want something. They're trying to get somewhere. They have a goal. In business, you do. You're leading your organization. You have a goal. You have a vision. Leaders have visions, right? This is where we're going. So you have this destination in mind of where you're going. That's what you want as an organization, as a leader, as someone on the team. We know where we're going. We have a goal. And then there's usually something that is standing between you and that goal. Sometimes it's large. It's a Mount Everest. It's a Goliath. And sometimes it's not. But there's something standing between it. Maybe it's just time. It doesn't have to be huge, but there's something standing between you and that goal. Every story and movie that you've ever seen had these three pieces. Now, if you're taking notes, you want to put a word around how would I classify these three? We called it the need, but you could also define this as the situation. This is the situation that we're dealing with. And if you think about any story you've heard, for example, if I told you, hey, I woke up this morning and my alarm went off, and I got up and I took a shower, brushed my teeth, combed my hair a little bit, what little I have, and then I dressed up and I drove to the office. And when I got here, I unlocked the front door and I came in and I turned the light on. And then I came and set up my computer. And then I clicked on a link and it got me into the Zoom room. And I talked to Zach for a little bit before we got started. Now, I could say that was a story and you go, that wasn't a story. Or if it was, it wasn't a very good one. Because the entire time that I was talking and giving you that information, what were you waiting for? Put in the chat window. What were you waiting for? I gave you a bunch of information, a bunch of data. What were you waiting for? because it didn't turn into a story until the end. Connie, the end. I was waiting for the end. I couldn't wait for that to be over. Most people are waiting for the so what. Like, well, what happened? It's as if nothing happened, then it's just a bunch of information. So let me take you to business for a moment. Think of any business presentation you've ever seen. Data, 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 facts, numbers, data, graph, chart, data, numbers, data, data, facts, numbers, chart, data, numbers, data. We're all waiting for the so what. What does this mean? It's the obstacle. It's here's our hero. This is where we're trying to get. This is what's standing in the way. And then every good movie, I would say, has some sort of a resolution at the end. Now, if it's a Greek tragedy, then the ending is usually not one that we all like. The Romeo and Juliet, I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of Shakespeare already because it's hard to understand. But Romeo and Juliet, beautiful story. I didn't like the ending. So, but there's a resolution. There's something that ends the story. So how does this look in business? Here's an example. By the way, this is a quiz question too. So get ready for the quiz question. Let's assume that we all work at one organization and someone stands up to speak in this conference room where we are all seated. And this person represents the Alpha team. The Alpha project is what they're working on. They say, we the Alpha project, we want to recommend that we delay all the testing until we stand up this staging environment so that we can prevent any type of false positives. But we can't do that on our own because it affects other groups and departments like the software development team. And so what we're asking of the audience is we would like to ask for the audience, these maybe senior leaders, to approve this and to communicate that to the other teams. Now it sounds like, okay, well, you laid out, this is who we are, this is what we want, and this is what's standing in the way, and here's what we're asking for. It has a beginning and an end, but there's something missing. So here's the quiz question. If you were a manager in that room and you had to approve this or deny it, do you approve it, deny it, or do you do something else? And if it's a do something else, which I'm hoping that's what you're responding with, what do you do? What would you do? You're the manager and they just presented this very quickly in about 2 minutes. They presented this to you and now they're looking at you. What would you do? Dave says, ask for info. Dave and David ask, so what? Hold until, Connie says, hold until more decisive info. Okay, so Connie might hold until she asks a question, like I need more info. Good job, Francis. She says, why are we doing this way? Why this way? If I were to take all the responses I'm getting here, I love this. What's the risks? Love that. Everyone's asking questions. And Connie, you said you would hold until, but it's like you need more information. So you'd have to ask questions, right, to get that information, unless they just offered it up freely. Look at all the questions. What's the benefit? How long will this take? You're asking a bunch of questions. So here's what I want everyone to understand. When it comes to a business message, the 4 pieces you see on the slide right in front of you, every audience wants this. Who's involved? What do you want? What do you need from me? Like, what's the obstacle? What's standing in the way? And then go ahead and ask me, but there's something missing. And what's missing is what I call the messy middle. Take a look at these 3 pieces. The first piece we already said, you need to establish the need. I said there's 3 challenges you need to overcome. First is the need. When you're setting up a story and you're going to establish the need, you're going to talk about the situation. Let's make sure we put those 3 pieces in there. Who's the hero? Who's the hero? By the way, audiences love it when you make them the hero. Just saying. Who's the hero? What is the need? What do they want? Where are they trying to get to? What's the goal? What's the objective? And then what's standing in the way? This is all about the situation. And then we talked about having the ask at the end, but the messy middle has been left out. The messy middle are the other 2 pieces. When we started with 3 challenges, I said the need, and then I said, what's the path and how much is going to cost? That's the messy middle. What every audience needs before they can answer that question is, what's the way that we're going to go? And do we have the means in order to get there? When you think about movies that you have seen before, they follow this. In fact, let me ask this question right now. Type in the chat panel, give me a favorite movie. By the way, I'll just tell you that while just about any movie will work in this situation, action movies work great. So if you want to play along and say, like, what's a good action movie, pick something like that. But just give me a movie. Type it in the chat panel. What's a favorite movie of yours? David Pearl. I'm not going to go with that one. That one's going to be too hard for me to follow. Star Wars. We Were Soldiers. I like that one. Gladiator. Very good. Black Panther. My daughter just saw the new one. I haven't seen it yet. The Wakanda Forever. Lord of the Rings. The Sting. Nice. I like that one. That was Robert Redford. Is that who that was? Die Hard. Top Gun. All good. All good. Here's what I want you to do is take your movie. I want you to think through some of this. We'll go with, I'm going to go with Die Hard from Dave here. And it is a Christmas movie. I'm on team Christmas movie when it comes to Die Hard. I'm not joking when I tell you, I actually have a Die Hard ornament hanging on the Christmas tree, and it's a little tinfoil. My son made it. It's a tinfoil rectangle, and there's a picture of him crawling through the vents. He made it, not me, but I hang it up every year now. So if we think about Die Hard, who's our hero? Well, it's pretty simple. It's John McClane, right? He's our hero. What does he want? Well, he wants to rescue his wife and the others, but he wants to rescue his is what's staying in the way? Well, is his name Hans Gruber or something like that? The character, he's the thief, the terrorists that have taken over Nakatomi, is that what it was? Nakatomi Plaza? Anyway, so that's the setup at the beginning, and you get that fairly quickly at the beginning. They set up the entire movie. And then the rest of the movie is really playing in this center space right here, isn't it? And the ask or the ending, if you want to call it, the resolution at the end, we have to play in this middle space, and that's where the movie gets all of its fun. Question. Did John McClane in the Die Hard movie, did he know the path that he needed to take to finish this entire movie? No. He kind of made it up as he went along, didn't he? Things kept changing. He had to keep adjusting. So the path was not even really known. Second, did he have all the resources that he needed in order to accomplish the task of saving his wife and the others? No, he didn't even have shoes, right? He didn't even have shoes. So, and he didn't have a weapon. He had to get a gun. So he found duct tape. I mean, do you see how an interesting movie, especially an action movie, the path is not necessarily known. The resources are not all there. In business, before we can make a decision, like Connie said, I can't make a decision on this. What Alpha Team is just asking for, I can't make a decision until I get some more information. I'm guessing that what everything Connie needed would be, tell me about your plan. Tell me about this plan. Let's dig into that plan a little bit more. How did you develop this plan, and why are you choosing this plan? What did you consider? And then second, Connie would probably say, okay, so even if we go with that plan, what's it going to cost us? Time, money, people. Is it going to pull people off another project to put them on this one? Are we going to outsource this? What is it going to cost us from a resource standpoint? I think of it as the ways and the means. Do we know the way? And do we have the means? Now, diving into this a little bit deeper, I'm going to put this into a matrix for us. And if I just did a quick jump here, let me explain what we're looking at right now. I'm going to take your ways and your means. The ways and means, we're going to put it on two axes. All right? The ways and means on two axes. So the first axis is this. It's your path. When you're considering how you're going to pull together your story that you're going to deliver in a business setting, is the path known or is it unknown? As we said with John McClane, it was unknown. He didn't know the exact path that he was going to take. The second question is all about the resources. Is this going to be easy or is it going to be difficult? And this is the expectation. In other words, do we have everything that we need? Do we have all the time? We have all the money? There's very low risk? Or is it the opposite? It's going to be fairly challenging. We don't have all the resources we need. We may have to get creative here. So when you think about these four, here's the rest of our webinar. I'm going to give you a messaging model for each of these four situations. So I needed to set this all up that when you're looking at your business situation, the first thing you need to determine is which of these 4 quadrants are you in. You're going to, first of all, give the hero, the want, and the obstacle, because that defines the situation and the need. All right, everyone got that? Hero, want, obstacle. Second piece, we're moving into the messy middle, and this is where your audience is going to have all of their questions, right? Just like you did. All your questions are going to fall into this messy middle. This is where the matrix helps us. All right. So think about, do they know the path, or do we know the path? Second, do we have what it takes? So let's get into each one of these. Do we have the ways and the means? We're going to go through each one of these. I'm going to start in this upper right-hand corner. The upper right-hand corner is, we might say, the easiest one. This is, the path is known. We know which path we need to go down, and it's not that risky. It's fairly straightforward. Maybe we've done this before. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be that challenging. This is the number 1 category, and here's your model for this. We call this the what, why, how. You may have heard of this model before. This is where it works very well. You give them the what, the hero, the want, and the obstacle. That's where you start. Next, why? This is also part of the need, but you need to let them know why this is important. You need to let them know why you're making the recommendation that you're making. They need to know the why. Put that in there. And then finally, the how. And the how is just, do we have the ways and the means? How are we going to do this? We're going to use our typical process. This is a standard project. We're going to do our typical process as we normally do. Zach, you take this. Shannon, you take this. Connie, you're going to work on this. It's our typical plan. Everyone knows a plan. And then resources. If we have all the resources we need, you know who to call if you need help. We've got all the budget we need to take care of it. And we have 2 weeks, which should be plenty of time to get it done. It's a simple what, why, how moving forward. I'm going to move on because that one's fairly straightforward. And if it's easy, you just do it. Just do it. Let's move to the more challenging ones. So here's one of the more challenging ones. Think of this. Right now, the path is unknown. Don't know exactly. I have an idea of where we want to get. But from point A to point B, I'm not sure what kind of detours we may need to take. So the path is not entirely known, but we know the direction, that we're heading in. But we should have everything that we need, all the resources. If you're speaking to your team, what they need from you as a leader is they need to know that you're supporting them and how you're going to support them. I'll give you just one example. And when it comes to support, it's this. If the path is unknown, let them know how you're going to support them by discovering that path. Maybe it's just encouragement to feel free to try things. It's okay if you make some decisions and it doesn't work. Let them know that you support them doing this discovery of the path that they need to take. If you think they have all the resources that they need, maybe you just give them support by reminding them not to get complacent. In other words, everyone knows Murphy's Law, right? My daughter, she's in her 20s. She's actually dating a gentleman. His last name is Murphy. And so he said, yeah, I've heard this plenty my whole life. But Murphy's Law, as soon as we start to overlook something, something might go wrong. So even though we think we have all the resources and it's less risky, maybe you support them by just giving them a gentle reminder. I'll give you a quick example of that. We're in category 2 now. This is my son. He graduated college and he wanted to take a road trip on his own. He's an Eagle Scout. I trust him. He's fine. But he also rides motorcycles, which mama doesn't really care for. But he rebuilt this bike that you see. It's a 72 Honda CB 350. If you know motorcycles, then it was a kind of a classic back then. Anyway, he left Texas and drove all the way up to Colorado and back through New Mexico and a portion of Oklahoma. But he did this entire trip on his own. Now, he knew generally where he wanted to go, but the path was somewhat unknown. And he thought he had everything he needed. And he had a good friend of his that rebuilds motorcycles as well. And he gave him this story and said, listen, the 72 CB 350s are known for 2 things. One is they tend to break down with this, and 2, they break down with, I don't know motorcycles, so I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was 2 things that he told him. And so my son said, thank you for that. And he put those in the saddlebags on the side. And guess what happened before he got out of Texas, which is a long drive, by the way. But before he got out of Texas, he broke down, and it was one of those things. He was on the side of the road for about 3.5, 4 hours. He had all the tools and the part they need, and he replaced it and got back on the road. This is just an example of sometimes sometimes when we are looking at it should be fairly easy and the path is somewhat unknown. What do I need? Here's your model for this. We call this the lesson learned. And this is how that friend of his delivered that story to him. I was going to take a road trip one time. We've all taken road trips and we think that we've got everything we need. We've packed everything we need and we're sure that we're going to be just fine. We know generally where we're going. And then I learned this, that on a CB350, these are going to break down, and I didn't have the part and I did not have the tools. And then he talked through, this is what happened to me. You're facing a similar situation today because you're taking that same type of a bike on this type of a road trip. I recommend that you do this. Always remember that you need to take these parts and this part. It's a lesson learned story. This is another one if you want to do a screen grab so you have this model. This is when the path is somewhat unknown. It should be fairly simple, but you don't want them to get complacent. So maybe give them a gentle reminder of what they should keep in mind before they move forward. All right, that's your second one. We did supporting. Here's a tough one. The last two are a little bit tougher. This one is the path is known. We know exactly what we need to do. We don't want to do it. It's risky. It's challenging, difficult. We don't have what we need to actually make this happen. That can be a challenge. And this is one that we just typically refer to as the David and Goliath. What's the path? Goliath. The obstacle is the way. Have you ever heard that phrase? The obstacle is the way. We have to go that route. That is the path. And we know it's going to be challenging and difficult. So we talk about the hero, the want, and the obstacle, and you let them know right up front. This is your model. You let them know right up front what they're stepping into. Next, what's the approach? Here's what people do when they share a David and Goliath type of a story. They may talk about another situation where another group has faced something. And they'll talk about their Goliath, their Everest that they had to conquer. And here's a key. If you're taking notes, please write this down. If you're going to share a story about a past experience, how someone overcame their obstacle, and you want to share it with the team today to encourage them, here's very important. You point out the hero want obstacle, and then you point out how they felt before they started. Please write that down. This is so important. It's the feeling piece. They felt inadequate. They felt weak. They felt less powerful. They felt like they were ill-equipped. They weren't ready. However you want to say it, they felt. Talk about how they felt. But they decided to go anyway. Here's why we do this. John C. Maxwell says that you always meet your audience where they are. Where they are. Knowing that your team is already, they already know that they are facing Everest right now. Meet them where they are. Let them know that you know how they feel. That's going to help you engage with them. So you connect with them. The feeling is so important. Then you talk about their approach and how they overcame it. And usually it involves a creative approach. All right, it's something they had to think of. Remember, the path is not, even if it is known through Goliath, they take a different approach to get around or through. Talk about the creative approach that they took to get through their Everest or their Goliath. And then finally, you talk about how it's your turn to get started now. Now it's your turn. If you're putting notes down, please put this down as well. When they overcame in your past experience, you sharing that story, when they overcame it, go back to how they felt. And now they felt great. They felt so positive. They felt so inspired. They felt relieved. They knew that they had done something that they initially thought they could not do on their own. Tap into the feeling. This is important because when we talk about something being difficult and risky compared to being easy, there's a feeling associated with that. And when they know they're walking into something difficult, meet them where they are, but remind them of how it feels to win, all right, to get past that. This one can be challenging. It's always challenging, right? But recognize those feelings when you're going to use this model. Now, I always encourage questions. Zach, I haven't heard you chime in yet if there's any questions popping up, but any questions that you have at any time, please type them in. If you got questions right now, here's an intermission, a quick break. type something in the chat panel if you've got it. While you're thinking of a question, I always like to give what I call pro tips. So I'll give you a quick pro tip. It's somewhat ancillary, but related to what we're doing here. It's a quick tip, and that's this. I get this question a lot as a coach. I coach C-level executives and all the way down the org chart. And I will get asked the question, what can I do to be more engaging? When I speak, when I present, what can I do to be more engaging? I'll give you a very quick tip. Use phrases like this. Picture this. Or for example, or imagine if you use any of those or something similar to it. Here's what you're doing is you're tapping into the imagination and creativity of your audience. That's the third brain. If you're not familiar with your three brains, I'll tell you, you know the first two, logic and feeling. Are you a thinker or a feeler? You've all heard that, right? You have a third brain. The third brain is creativity and imagination. If you want to be an engaging speaker and presenter, tap into all three of them. Logic, you're doing that all the time, I'm sure. In business, I'm sure you're presenting logical arguments, right? The second is tapping into the feelings. We just gave an example there with the David and Goliath. Make sure you recognize how they feel about something. And that third one is tapping into their imagination and their creativity. And an easy way to do that is say something like, for example, go back to the example I gave you earlier about data, chart, graphic, facts, data, numbers. For example, your ears perk up because you're about to make all that data real. What do I mean by make it real? It's what we started with today. You, the speaker, are about to take all the data and apply it to the audience's story. Do the hard work for them. They'll pay attention. All right. No questions in, Zach? I got you on
Russ,
video.
I got one sent directly to me, and it is how you can make the audience the hero.
Ah, very nice. Making the audience the hero. And I said earlier that the audience wants to be the hero of this. The David and Goliath story would be a good example, because when you talk about a past experience and you talk about what they had to overcome and how they felt and what they achieved, when you do something like that and you apply that to your audience, they are the hero. They're the hero. Here's the best way that I can tell you to always think of making the audience the hero is think about what they want from your presentation. So we teach a workshop on message building, and we talk about two things right up front. And it's the what do you want? It's what do they want? Every audience shows up for a reason. And so when you think about your message delivered to them, and you think about what do they want? What do they want from this? And let me give you, I just gave you a shortcut on the screen right now with this slide. Here's another shortcut that you can all use to pull your audience into being the hero. If you're sharing a story about someone else, sometimes it's about yourself, but I don't want to be the hero. That no one wants a superhero to show up and start talking to everyone. So how do I pull the audience into that? You can use this simple phrase. You set up something, and even if it's you as the hero in this story, then you pause and you look at the group and you say, I'm sure we have all experienced something like this, where you're facing this, you don't know what to do, and your manager is not giving you the support that you need. What do you do? And how do you move forward? Well, I was facing that same situation. What am I going to do? And you pause here for a moment if you're sharing this as a story, because the more that you pause for a moment and say, what am I going to do? And you invited them into it, guess what they're doing in their head? They're trying to figure out what they would do if they were in your shoes. But here's the beauty of it. They're sitting in the audience, and it is risk-free thinking. You didn't ask them to offer a suggestion. Risk-free. They can just think about it in their own head. And second, no matter what they come up with, there are no consequences because you're the one in the story, the speaker, not them, but they will live through you. So an easy way, one of the ways to bring your audience in to be that hero, if you find that you're making yourself the hero in whatever the story is, relate it to, we've all experienced something like that, and invite them in and then say, what would you do? It's challenging. How would you move forward from there? And then they'll start thinking like you. And at the end, however it comes out, even if you are the hero, they're going to feel like they won the day as well. All right, I want to offer this to everyone as well. If you want to either go look us up on LinkedIn or scan the QR code. I got one more model I'm going to give you, but here's why I share this with you. I'm not going to sell you anything. That's not selling. If you like tools like this, if you want to follow us on LinkedIn, we post all of our tools out there. blog posts, tools, all the tools I've given you so far, we put them in past LinkedIn posts. So if you're on LinkedIn, I assume that you are. If you like these types of things, I'll invite you. Please follow us. We put stuff out there all the time where we give more and more tools and answer questions as well. All right, Zach, any more questions come directly to you then?
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, let's move on to this fourth one, and then I got a free tool I want to give you. But we did the encourage and inspire. That's the David and Goliath. The path is known, it's going to be tough, and we don't really have what we need. How do we address that? Here's the last one. And the last one is, this one seems almost impossible, doesn't it? It's going to be very risky. We don't have what we need, and we have no idea how we're going to do it. This is the die hard quadrant, isn't it? This is John McClane's quadrant right here. He doesn't exactly know how he's going to do this, and he doesn't have what he needs in order to accomplish that. And unfortunately, we all play the John McClane in real life in certain business situations. So what do I do to encourage my team or my company, if you're a small business owner like me? What do I do to encourage my team when it's going to be tough and we don't really know the path? We haven't traveled this path before. There are several tools you can use. This one we call the problem solution, and it's a sales story because you're, in a sense, selling them on the idea. And here's how it can work. I'll just bring all these out. So if you want to screen grab this one as well. If you're in sales or business development, I'm letting you know right now, grab this one. I have seen senior account managers use this so well when they are selling to a potential customer and an objection comes up. There's a hesitation on the customer's part. They're not quite sure if they're ready to move forward. They see risk, and they offer a story following this type of a template. And it's where the salesperson says something like, well, the best example that I can recall is, and then they lay out what it was that they remember from this story. This customer wanted to do this, and they couldn't figure out how to do this. And when you say you can't figure out how to do something, or we couldn't find, go back to the hero, the want, and the obstacle. Remember those three. So look at the first one here. It says best example I recall, and it says introduce the hero and the goal. That's the want. The hero and the want. That's that first blue bar you see there. Notice what they get in the next blue bar. So hero and want. What's the one that we left out? The obstacle. What's standing in the way? So you introduce that. That's problem. Now with those first two blue bars, you have effectively defined the need in the situation. All right, go back to what you saw earlier today. That's the need. Now you know that you're moving into this messy middle before you ask for the sale. So now you've got to address two things in that messy middle: the ways and means, the path, and the resources in order to make that happen. So what we did to get that done, you talk about the creative solution that took place, what you did for that customer. And when you talk about what you solved, it's wonderful if you can say that we not only avoided a disaster and just got back to par, if you want to call it that, but here's the benefits that came from it. We didn't know the path. It was going to be risky and challenging, but here's what we did in order to overcome that. And then you tie it to them. So the question that came up, Zach, about how do we make the audience the hero? In this model, you make the audience the hero right at the end. Right at the end, you tie it in and you say, for this situation, what we're looking at right here, for what you are dealing with, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, the customer that you're speaking to, what you're dealing with is very similar to what we've done when we help this other organization today. And then let them know what your commitment is and what you're going to do. And then at that point, what's the last thing you need to do? Ask. In this case, you'd ask for the business. So this is the third phase, going all the way back to what we talked about earlier, where we gave you moving left to right. I'll jump back to this slide. Remember how we talked about the need? That's the hero, the want, and the obstacle. We talked about the ask. That's the ending, where you give your audience, your team, your prospect, your customer, you ask them whatever you need, or you give them their next steps. But it's this messy middle that really makes up that story. And that messy middle, if I'm going to break it down at a very high level or into two buckets, it's the path. Is the path known? Is it well traveled? If you've done hiking and backpacking, you know what I'm talking about. Does it have good markers along the way? All right, Zach, you told me you did hiking. Zach said he needs excuses not to go out and hike because he wants to do it every single day and go out and hike. And living in Colorado, yes, of course, I would do the same. Yeah. So, but is the path known and is it well traveled and is it easy to travel? And then second, do you have everything you need? And Zach, I know that if you go backpacking or if you go hiking, even for the day, you're going to bring water or you're going to bring a water container. You may bring an energy bar. A first aid kit might be a good idea just in case. And maybe your trekking poles. My wife called them walking sticks one time, and I said, no, they're trekking poles. We're not going to call them walking sticks. They're trekking poles. I don't know why, just to me sounded better. All right, so let's give a quick recap of our quadrants here. Is the path known or unknown? This is the messy middle, right? You've done the hero one obstacle on the left. You haven't got to the ask yet. When you're in the messy middle, you use this quadrant. Is the path known or unknown? Do I have all that I need, all the resources, or do I not? Is it risky or less risky? And then you use that to determine which of the stories you're going to use. And if you've got your cameras ready, your screen grab ready, you might want to grab that. There's all 4 of them on one slide. All 4 of our models that we went over today, all 4 of these messaging models on our 4 matrix of is the path known or is it unknown? Is it safe and easy, got everything we need that we think we need, or is it something that's a little more risky and challenging? I don't want to oversimplify this. And what I mean by that is let you know that this is an easy process. It's not. And then you say, yeah, but Russ, the more we do it, the easier it gets, right? You remember when I told you that experience is a great teacher? We've all heard that. And I told you it's not. You've been lied to. It's a good teacher, but you need to reflect on it. And that'll make it a great teacher. Well, I'm going to give you something else that you may have heard before. You know how you've heard, oh, but it gets easier. It gets easier. I'm here to tell you that it does not. I'm serious. The situation, it does not get easier. You get stronger. Don't forget that. This has nothing to do with ego. You need to make sure that you are putting the tribute in the proper location. The situation is not getting easier. You are getting stronger. You are getting better. And it feels like it's getting easier. But which of these variables is changing? It's not the situation. The situation today is going to be the same as it is 10 years from now. Those situations are going to come up. But let's face facts that today, and you 5, 10 years from now, you'll be different. You get stronger. But how do you get stronger? Well, there's only one way to do that. You have to implement what you learn. Nothing improves until you implement something and change it. Here's your free tool. If you would like more to, you'd see 2 of them on here, number 2 and number 6. I gave you these today. I gave you those 2 recipes, the David and Goliath story, the lesson learned story. If you're a leader and if you want more story recipes, that's where you can get it. I don't have a QR code for it, sorry. But if you just go to our website, it's ispeak.com/story, STORY. It'll take you to the landing page and you can get that storytelling book if you want it. It just has more recipes in there. It's written as an ebook, so it gives a little more detail behind it as well. Here's your reminder to follow us also if you would like more of these tools. And if you're on LinkedIn, if you want to just see them show up in your feed, we'll post things out there for you as well. My parting words for you are this, and I'm happy to take questions as well. Nothing improves, and this means you too, until something changes. So let's make a positive change. Thank you all for giving me time to spend time with you on your Friday. Have a great weekend, great holiday season. Happy New Year, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much. And I will take questions if you got any.
Thank you on behalf of everybody, Russ, for taking time out of your day. Everybody, please be sure to follow iSpeak on LinkedIn for more tools and information about storytelling, as well as the website that Russ shared, www.ispeak.com/story, I believe is correct. And the alternative board on LinkedIn for more information about great webinars like this one, the first Friday of every month. I will also be sending a follow-up email with this recording, as well as information about our next webinar coming up. I don't see any direct questions, but Russ, congratulations. We got a comment saying from Slava saying you made the audience a hero today. So nice work. Good. And thanks for taking the time, everybody.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so one question came to me directly. Is it going to be recorded and sent out? And Zach, as you said, yes, it will be. It's going to be sent out. Very good. Thank you
Awesome,
all.
guys. Thank you for taking the time. We will see you next time.